Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear Islam, and welcome to Live with this course of Allah, Brother Alaa, your brother in Islam, coming to you with a brand new series called The Art of Parenting. And it's a beautiful place right here in Grimsby at the beach where we live close by. I was walking with my halal girlfriend, and guess what? It's time to talk to my brothers and sisters in how to actually go ahead and start raising the new generation in the best way possible. And we're going to start these beautiful new series with you, inshallah, every Wednesday at 7:50 for, inshallah, as long as it would take 10 to 15 minutes. Just a quick reminder, we're not going to drill you or anything else more than just a quick reminder for this person of Allah first, and my brothers and sisters out there, inshallah, as hopefully we can share 30 years of experience teaching these courses and dealing with family issues, and hopefully it's more preventative than anything else. And for those who are actually not married yet, it is indeed a great way to start, because it is a simple way of being proactive approach, not reactive approach. I do teach these courses around the world, and I have traveled by the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to share these moments of beautiful time with the knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah and the scholars according to the parenting methods and the best way possible to how to raise your children accordingly. In order for us to be able to understand that, we are going to go back in time. So if you're already married, alhamdulillah. If you're not married yet, good for you. And if you're married and you don't have children, even better. So now you're in the right time. Here we go. So the method that we were using is the three tells. Tell them what you tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them, and then you recap it. And I'm going to be asking questions, but it's just for you. I know it's rhetorical. I know that there's not a subject to have interactive, but indeed it will be more of you to raise a flag. And I also will ask you certain questions to see if you actually were listening or not. I don't have any candy for you, but inshallah, it will be rewarded by your spouse, especially your children, a little bit later, inshallah. And ultimately, our goal is to be with our children, our spouses, and our family in Jannah, according to Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullahi alayhi, when he quotes the ayat in the Quran. So let us start from the beginning. I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question, give you a few seconds to think about it. If I start to tell you what is number one haqq, what is number one right for your children, you'll probably tell me a Swiss bank account with a private jet and a private yacht, or maybe clothes over their shoulders, roof over their head, and food on their table. All of that I get a lot. However, believe it or not, the scholars say number one haqq, number one right for your children before they were even created is choosing the righteous spouse. And we did talk to you about the righteous spouse in the month of Ramadan when it came to the art and the fiqh of love and so on with our dear beloved Dr. Amjad. May Allah bless him, inshallah. And I was actually looking forward to have a discussion with him and maybe have an interview, or maybe more of a two-way interaction, or more a live kind of a thing. But inshallah, that's fine. I'd love to learn from him, and we can make it a little more interesting. But you know what? I'm on my own on this one, but inshallah, we'll do our best to get you there. So number one, when we talked about the righteous spouse in the previous episodes in the month of Ramadan, if you were there, alhamdulillah. If not, then we'll quickly remind you. And Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam al-Tabi'een, the leader of the Tabi'een, the followers of the companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them. When the man came to him and says, teach my child, remember what he said? He says, it's too late. And he asked him again, I'm asking you to teach my child. He's just a young kid. It's too late. For the third time, he repeated the same thing, and he says, teaching your child is by choosing the righteous spouse. And that's the answer for the first question I'm going to pose upon you. And I'm going to remind you again. So I'm hoping that you can register this or take some notes. And whatever it takes in order for you to be able to implement the knowledge. Because remember, we're not just going to be entertained here. We're not going to be just listening. In order for us to be able to go ahead and have some time together. No. We know about the twins of faith. Al-ilm wal-amal. Ta'allamna al-ilma wal-amal ma'an. That's Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. We used to memorize 10 ayat. And then he would memorize them, implement them, then move on. Because it says, تَعَلَّمْنَا الْعِلْمَ وَالْعَمَلَ مَعًا, we learn knowledge and action together. So whatever we learn today, brothers and sisters out there, we have a deal. Whatever we learn, we implement, inshallah. So it becomes حُجَّةٌ لَكْ لَمْ عَلَيْكَ. The knowledge will become a plea for you and against you. So the first thing, if you are married already, I can't help you. But inshallah, you will learn to become a best parent. And if you're not married already, I already talked to you before, we can repeat it again. You never know, but a little more in details, depending on the time allotted and whatever it takes, inshallah, to get you there. So number one rule, as we mentioned before, is that and number one right. Now, believe it or not, my brothers and sisters, the scholars would ask a simple question. What is the most important decision you will ever make in your life? And again, I'll give you a few seconds. The answer is, most of the people think that it's getting married. Believe it or not, it's number 2 on your list. Number 1 on your list is what we're talking about today. Having a child is number 1 most important decision you will ever make in your whole life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us so many things to follow, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us so many paths and ways in order for us to be righteous and the best, and lead us for muttaqeen, lead us for the pious. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the steps that we will follow, inshallah. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us how. And the scholars give us the interpretation of best of it and how we can actually take that on a silver spoon to be able to order this in a few minutes that we share with you, inshallah. So we already know number 1 haqq, and number 1 opinion, method of choice and the decision you make. Now let me ask you another question. And today I'm just gonna build the base in order for us to understand what we're going through and why it's so important for us. Okay. So number one, let me give you now another one. Definition of an orphan. Go ahead. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it again. If you think that the orphan is the one that the father died before they reach the age of puberty, you'd be right according to definition, but that's not what I'm after. And in the animal kingdom, it is actually that child that is a mother that dies, because it's the mother that is hunter, believe it or not, in the animal kingdom. However, since we are in the human race and we're Homo sapiens, so let's stay there for a bit. All we have to remember is the definition of an orphan according to the Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, one opinion of the scholars and others in the poem. He says, Laysa al-yatim, that the orphan is not the one that the mata abawahu, the parents died. It says, but that yatim is lahu ummun takhallat wa aban majhula. The yatim is actually, they have parents, both parents alive and well, but ummun takhallat, a mother that is so busy with her career, so busy with her social media, so busy with everything else except the child. And wa aban majhula, a father that is on the road all the time and working here, working there, traveling here, and he has nothing to do except to get that 3 things I told you about. Make sure that the food is on the table, roof over their head, and clothes on their back, and they think that's the role of a father. Believe it or not, it's one aspect of your financial obligations, but it's not everything else. You work so hard, brothers, to get that couch that you have no time to sit on. I'm going to share a story with you that I actually shared with some of the students in the UK. I remember that, wallahi. First time I was going to that area and I was teaching a course and I was telling that story, and believe it or not, after I said that story, I cried because I was that guy. And I changed my life right after that, believe it or not, because I had to hear it, you know, to order for me to be able to understand the magnitude of it. The story goes, is the father coming back from work and he knocks on the door, his son opens. His son hugs him, kisses him, he misses his father. He goes, Dad, can I ask you a question? The father is tired. He says, get away from me, son. Can't you see I'm tired? So the son goes away, turns around, goes to his room and starts to cry. After the father calms down, he recognizes that he made a mistake. And he goes to knock on the door. I'm sorry, son. What question did you want to ask? He says, Dad, how much do you make an hour? He says, I make $20 an hour, son. He says, Dad, here's $20. Can I have an hour of your time? SubhanAllah. Wallahi, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you right now. And I still am holding back the tears, wallahi, because I was that guy. You travel around the world, each course is about parenting, about marriages, and you don't look inwards. You know, I learned from my wife something called the Maya theory. I'll teach you a little bit, maybe a little bit later. But maybe since we're talking about it now, let's talk about it now. I remember my wife one time had booked herself in my schedule because I do look at my schedule a day ahead to see what's going on the next day. And I looked at her name was there, and I was going, that name sounds familiar. It's my wife. So I learned something. MYOF theory, it stands for my time, your time, our time, family time. So you need to have your own time. Indeed, you need to invest in yourself. But when you do have children, you will also look after your spouse. After you come home, you take a break, then you take over your children, and your spouse should take a break on their own. And then don't forget to go on a date. That's your O time. So my time is yours, your time is your spouse, the O time is our time, is when you take them on a date, and the F time is family time. So I will go into details of it as we go along, but this is just a quick reminder. So my brothers, the yatim, the orphan, is not the one you think. The other definition, believe it or not, of the orphan, according to some of the opinions of the scholars, the orphan is not the one that doesn't know or have no parents. The orphan has no character and no religious background, no khuluq and deen. That's an orphan. Ajib wallahi. So when we teach our children, you have to understand, what are we teaching our children? Are they raised according to Quran and Sunnah? Are we teaching them the matters and the etiquettes and the way that we have to be proud of who they are? And that's the basis of these theories. So let us start from the beginning. Before we start, let us have a strong foundation. So the scholars say, the first thing, again, to protect your children, not just having the righteous mother to raise them, because statistics show that the average father spends 20 to 60 minutes a day with the children. Guess who raises the children? I'm not taking you off the hook, my brothers. I'm just letting you know the truth is that most of the time we're on the road trying to make ends meet and do the right thing and whatever responsibilities we have to do. But it is a mother that spends more time and bonds with the children. So please make sure you choose perfectly and do your best to raise that child in the best way possible. So knowing that, we said that the mother is called and you understand al-Kitab, the mother of the book. You know, this word ummah comes from the word ummah. Get it? This whole thing comes from the mother. And that's why, my brothers, Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi says, women are half of the ummah and they give birth the other half of the ummah. That means they are the whole ummah. So please look after your spouse, look after the mother of your children. So knowing that, when you have intimate relations, please note that the dua is there. It's a sunnah that you want to protect your children before they're even created. He says, Bismillah, Allahumma jatna shaitan wajna shaitan marzaqtana. In the name of Allah, oh Allah, protect us, meaning yourself and your spouse, from shaitan. And wajna shaitan marzaqtana, and oh Allah, protect us and our children, whatever you're going to bless us with as provisions, meaning our children, from shaitan. So these are the areas where I'm going to build the foundation in order for us to be able to capitalize on this opportunity. This is now preventive measures and proactive approach, not reactive approach. We will give you a lot coming your way, inshallah, in order for us to understand what are the principles. We'll talk about everything that you talk about. We'll talk about the terrible tools. We'll talk about the psychological effect, the physical effect, the social media. We'll talk about the Islamic schools. We'll talk about everything. You name it. It's a whole long list of things that we're going to talk about, one at a time, inshallah. But at least for now, understanding that the mother that we will talk about now will have 4 things that we talked about previously. A reminder. Remember, تنكح المرأة لأربع. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a woman should be wed for 4 things. That this is exactly what we're going to leave you with, inshallah. And you look at your spouse, and I don't want you to have anything else except nothing but positive when you look at your spouse, inshallah. لجمالها ومالها ونسبها ودينها فاظفر بذات الدين تربت يدك. Her beauty, their wealth, their lineage, and the religious background. And the religious background is we emphasized. And I know I talked about just in that marriage courses in Ramadan, as we talked about you before. And that's exactly what we are going to leave you, inshallah. So I'm going to ask you where we started with. You remember what we talked about? Let me recap quickly. Can you please tell me what is the number one decision in your life? If you said marriage, I'm going to smack you upside the head. You were not listening. It's number two. If you said children, you're right. And I love you for the sake of Allah. I don't have candy, but I will say, Jazakumullahu khaira. Okay. Can you please tell me what is the definition of an orphan? If you tell me it is a child that haven't reached the age of puberty and lost her father or his father, you'd be just addressing the definition, not what we talked about. But if you tell me that the definition of an orphan, according to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu and Ali Bayt al-Hari ajma'in, is the child that has both parents alive, but ummun takhallat wa aban mashghula, the mother that is preoccupied with her career, social media, whatever else, so that they keep him busy, and the father is so neglected of their child because they are just thinking that their job is to put the roof over their head, clothes on their back, and food on the table. And again, if you tell me what is number one haqq, number one right for your child, if you tell me PS4, I'm gonna shoot you. It's illegal. We can't do that because right now we could be like happy and terrorist. La hawla wa quwwata illa billah. But if you tell me that number one haqq is choosing the righteous mother, you're right on, mashallah. Now, lastly, remember, you cannot be the guy I told you the story about. The one that the son is asking how much you make a dog an hour. That his son will fight for your house. If you don't show them the time now, they will not show you the time later. And believe me, if you neglect him now, you will be spending your retirement in a senior homes. Believe me, I have seen it happen. It's sad, but it's true. So it's what you do will be done unto you. On Muslim do. Yes, it does rhyme. And keep smiling. This is your brother in Islam, Alaa Elsayed. It was an honor and pleasure for me to host on you. And this, look forward to every Wednesday at 7:50, inshallah. We will take you for another journey on the art of parenting. With that, I thank you so much for your time. Jazakumullah anna khaira. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.